Hi, my name is Jamie Lynch, and you are listening to Eating Habits, my podcast about everything restaurants. I will explore the human element of the hospitality business, and I'll talk to the who's who in restaurants, explore their stories, and hear what's on their minds in the ever-changing landscape of the food and beverage industry. Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another episode of the Eating Habits podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Lynch. I want to take this opportunity to share some exciting and fun events I have coming up in September, right around the corner. The first thing we got going on is Friday, September 23rd. I'll be cooking at the Green Mile Club of the President's Cup at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, North Carolina. This will be the day of the cut going into the championship weekend, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Chef Adam Hodgson and I will have some really cool snacks that we'll be dishing out at the VIP tent. So if you're at Quail Hollow for the cut, we might see you there. Next up on Saturday, September 24th, the following day, I'll be hosting a 4-course Outstanding in the Field dinner at Renfro Farm in Matthews, North Carolina. My menu is totally Carolina inspired. I'll be using a bunch of my favorite farms to put the dinner together, as well as some veggies from Renfro Farms. This dinner's filling up quickly, so you guys gotta grab tickets now if you want to meet me out there. Go to outstandinginthefield.com and grab those tickets. If you miss me at the President's Cup and the farm dinner isn't really your thing, you can catch up with me the following day, Sunday, September 25th. I will be paired up with a local farm at the Farm to Fork Picnic at Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden. This is a really cool event. There'll be like 25 chefs and farmers paired up, putting together a dish at different tasting tents around the Botanical Garden. You'll be able to hang out with us, check out some local beers, local booze, local food, talk with your chefs, get some pictures. It's going to be a really cool afternoon at the gardens. So grab your tickets over there at PiedmontCulinaryGuild.com and look for Farm to Fork on their website. Okay, so now to the show. Today's guest, William Underwood, was the CDC of Bardo and Vanna restaurants in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was working alongside super creative chef Michael Knoll, and they were pushing the envelope to tasting menu cuisine here in Charlotte when he finally hung up his apron, stepped away from the stove to pursue some other creative endeavors. I really enjoyed getting to the bottom of it with William in this week's episode, so I hope you enjoy the show. If you do enjoy, please send me a message and give us a like to help me get this show out to other like-minded food fans.
Hey, this is William Underwood, and you're listening to Eating Habits.
Very well done. What's up, William?
How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I got you in the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, man?
Not much.
Tell me what you've been up to.
Man, not cooking.
Yeah.
which is really weird.
How does that feel?
It feels right.
Yeah,
it feels. It's not what I expected for sure in life, but I don't have the desire to cook right now. Like that's just not.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not on my mind. It's like in the back of my mind, and I can tell it's like kind of brewing, and it's something's brewing with food, but it's like the time has to be right for it, and it feels like right now I'm able to do a lot of things that just help me get in the right headspace for when I do it.
Gotcha. So previously, before your hiatus, first of all, how long have you not been cooking?
Since November of last year.
Okay, so we're creeping up on, it's like 10 months or something like
Yeah.
that? Okay. Previously to that, you were the CDC, chef de cuisine at Bardo and Vanna restaurant. I think you kind of were managing both kitchens at that point.
Yeah, so, and that was towards the end of my time there. I was actually my official title was executive chef and head of cultural development. So
Gotcha.
It shifted eventually from being CDC primarily in a creative role to operations.
Yep.
And that was probably the last 6 months I was there, I would say, is where I was really just doing operations side of front and back of house.
So what happened? So why the change? Why the break? Why all that?
I was ready for it. I think I always listen to my gut. I always feel things out, and I know when the time for something is done, and it was just done. I don't know any big particular reason. I definitely noticed my health starting to dwindle, and at that time I had a 7-month-old daughter, 6-7 months old.
Congratulations, by the way. How's she doing?
She's good. It's awesome. I've been able to spend so much time with her, which is again one of the biggest reasons I wanted to take the break. So I felt like I needed to kind of pull myself out of it, just get my head straight, do the things I wanted to do, which was spend time with my wife and daughter and pursue art. And I've been able to do all that. So
you mentioned your health dwindling. I'm interested in that. What about it? Was it mental? Was it physical? Was it and if you don't mind talking about it, what was going on there?
Yeah, I guess both. Probably physical because of mental. Yeah, in fact, up to me leading, I'd put my notice in with them, and I was having a lot of tests and procedures done. I was getting tested for autoimmune disorder, which now it just looks like was probably stress. I probably had a lot of my symptoms just from stress, but I was having anxiety attacks and even skin rashes and gut issues and just things that was clear that my body wasn't healthy.
Right. What kind of symptoms were you having? Were you get?
So the biggest one was no appetite at all. So I couldn't eat.
Been there.
I couldn't eat, and a lot of I was having sometimes 3 panic attacks a day, and panic attacks to the level where my legs were shaking. I couldn't stand up. I had to physically go sit down. I think I've tried to block this a couple months out of my mind. But and then just like I said, I was having some problems with my gut and stomach pain, and so they were looking for ulcerative colitis, and eventually muscle aches, a lot of things that now looking back and educating myself a little bit, I'm realizing that was probably just stress and anxiety.
Gotcha. So they didn't find any real physical issues with you from a health standpoint?
No, they said that I likely do have some sort of autoimmune disorder, but that stress is the single biggest agitator for that. So if I'm under any stress, then that's going to present itself and give me issues.
Can we talk about the stress a little bit?
Yeah,
because I think that's a super important part of our industry that normal folks or we'll call them pedestrians,
right,
people who are not in the kitchen or in the restaurant business, maybe don't feel that kind of stress, but there's a lot of stress when you're handling food for people, right? You're responsible for putting out food that's safe for people to eat. You're working at a super high level, working for somebody else. Yep. You're managing other people's money, which is a huge stress. I mean, I remember, I think back to when we opened Five Church, that was my first ownership, executive chef role, and managing all this money for people. I was freaking out.
Right. Yeah.
And didn't really know how to do it. And then you got all the people. You got all these staff that look up to you, that were that need you to guide them along the way. So there's a lot of layers to it. What was your experience with the stress? What aspects were most stressful to you? Obviously, you didn't do a great job of managing it at the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
no, you're right. I think a lot of people don't realize how many, how broad the job description of a chef is. How many. Yeah, people don't realize that you have to be good at so many things, or at least proficient in enough things, from leadership to the business side of things, managing money. And now definitely there's a pressure to be creative too, as the industry, I think, really is starting to transition into being an art form. I think it definitely already is, there's no question, but it's people are starting to acknowledge that, I think, on a larger scale. And, we're seeing that just with restaurants that exist now. They're art studios, that's what it is. So there's stress coming in from all these different levels, all these different sides, and especially if you want to do things well, it's a lot to keep up with, to keep track of. And then at the end of the day, you're the one that everybody's looking to, like you mentioned. You're the one that they're kind of you're the one making sure that the boat goes,
Totally.
So.
What part of that was most stressful to you? Which part, was it kind of equal? Was there one facet of the job that pressured you more than others?
No, I think it was my personal life, actually. I think just from a taking care of my body standpoint, I had a new baby. I wasn't sleeping well, and then I felt pressured, mostly all from myself, really. My wife was always so supportive of my career, and but like I wanted to be home. Like that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be at my house. I didn't want to listen to the hoods over my head like every second of the day anymore. Yeah, right, nonstop. Sick of the smell of bleach and getting home late. And I think it was that. I think at the end of the day, I was honest with myself, and I didn't like what I was spending my time doing every day.
Gotcha.
And I think I lost interest in food, which was big. Like I stopped being creative with food and having the desire to taste things.
Yeah.
And that was a red flag for me, and something that I realized, like, okay, what am I in this for right now? Because this isn't the reason I got into it.
So let's talk about that. Like, first of all, that sucks. Like, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
And it's important to, like, I've been there a couple times, that burnout where you're just like, falling apart, right? Everything's just falling apart. You can't seem to keep it together. You kind of lose track of what's important and what you should be doing. And and just because you're kind of so wrapped up in all of it that you're missing on all of it, right? You're not doing anything well. You're missing a little bit everywhere. And that's a really awful feeling. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
But how did you get into it? So, if the creative process was kind of slipped away and your interest in food was, kind of gone, why did you get into cooking in the first place?
Yeah, so I guess I have to start about telling you when I was like a kid, when I was a child. So I grew up on a farm in like middle of nowhere, Eastern Kentucky, Appalachian Mountains.
Nice. What kind of farm? What'd you guys have there?
It was like, I'm from a very large family. I have 9 siblings, depending on how you count it. But so my parents, they bought some land out in, like I said, the mountains of Eastern Kentucky, and you couldn't really grow vegetables there. Like you had to bring in all your own soil because it's just clay. Like it's just gnarly soil. But we had goats and horses and chickens and ducks, and we raised our own pigs for meat, and we milked our goats and made cheese. And that was my childhood.
That's awesome.
I had a amazing childhood. My parents were very intentional about I don't know, I guess getting us in touch with what life really is, about like the growing food and
taking responsibility for your own food and like where it comes from and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I love that.
So during that time, I got into ballet of all things.
How did that happen? I gotta ask.
So man, a girl I liked was.
It's always the girl.
Yeah, it's all,
the girl always.
Yeah, the only thing that can make a 15-year-old put on tights. So I started because of that, because I knew she danced at the studio. I liked her. I wanted to. That was the only way I could. She was a couple years older than me, so that's the only way I could be around her, have proximity to her. And I loved it. Like I loved dancing. I loved.
So the girl got you hooked, and then you kind of fell in love with. Yeah,
and then she disappeared a couple months later, and I'm stuck in the studio still wearing tights, and but in love with it, and excited about it, and just saw myself doing it. Yeah.
What about the dancing did you love? I'm curious.
I didn't know at that time. Yeah. Because I wasn't good at it. I wasn't.
You didn't have the natural talent.
Yeah, no, and I started older, so just from a developmental standpoint, like with your frame and your structure for ballet dancers, you really want to start when you're 2 years old. Yeah. But so I loved that it was art, and I didn't know that then. Mm-hmm. But I loved just being in touch with a group of creative people and working on projects together. And the artistic creative aspect of it, but I didn't have any words for it then, and obviously still I don't think those words are specific enough, but that was definitely my plan. My plan was to be a ballet dancer, and ended up when I was 16 years old moving away from Kentucky to St. Augustine, Florida to attend a pre-professional program. Was thinking that's what I wanted to do for my career, and then my senior year I was supposed to be out auditioning for ballet companies, and I had a hip injury and kind of was out for a couple weeks, and started bussing tables and being a food runner and dishwasher at this restaurant. And I guess I didn't realize how much I loved food until then. Mm-hmm. I couldn't actually acknowledge how much I loved food until then, because I looked back at my childhood growing up on this farm and making our own food, and I was always in the kitchen with my mom and with my grandmother, but I didn't think much of it until I, started to work in restaurants. See it in a professional setting where
People are doing it as a career, as a job, as a, environment where people come to,
Right.
Enjoy the food or whatever.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and I think cooking felt a lot like dancing to me at that point, but I loved it more. And I was better at it. I think really that's the thing. I was a lot better at cooking than I was dancing. Like cooking just felt like me. It was very natural, and I didn't have to think about it. It just happened. And then, so I'm kind of have that starting to pick up one of the exec chef at one of the restaurants I was running at. It was this really great Italian restaurant in St. Augustine, and she used to work for Sean Brock. And so literally the conversation that actually pulled me into the industry was I was talking with her, and she mentioned Sea Island red peas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and so I made some comment about Sean Brock. That was whatever, I was 16 years old. So
what year was this, roughly?
2016, I think. Yeah, 2016.
Yep.
So, and she's like, how do you know who Sean Brock is? And like I said, that's when I realized. That's when I could look back and see like, oh, I've like been methodically studying food and menus, and just because that was my hobby. Like I was, dancing and planning on pursuing that, but food was all I thought about when I was at home.
Gotcha. And so how did you research food at that point? Like, were you like buying cookbooks? Were you going out to eat? Like, what was your process to explore?
So every time, pretty much, I was pretty methodical about it. But every time Michelin released a new guide, I followed a few cities, or every time the top 50 list came out, I would go like literally click every single restaurant and look at their menu.
Yeah.
And I would read their menu and until I found an ingredient or a technique I didn't know about, and then I would Google it.
Right.
And I did that. Yeah, I think probably every single night for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I was just
you were obsessed.
Yeah, I was obsessed, but I didn't know it. Just like
this is how you spent your time.
Yeah, that's how I wound down and let my body recover from dancing 50
Most
hours
kids
a
play
week.
video games.
Right.
And you scour the internet for food related stuff. That's awesome. Stalking chefs and restaurants on the Michelin guide.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So how'd you come across Sean? I mean, at that point, I think there was he was 2016-ish, like that. Like he was popping off at McCrady's, right? He was really starting to become, like a focal point for Charleston cooking, Appalachian kind of farm to table stuff. Like he was really pushing that.
Right. Yeah, I think he had the mind of a
James
chef.
Beard. Yeah, James Beard. Did he won a James Beard already?
Yeah, I think so. But then he was on Netflix had a show, The Mind of a Chef. Or I guess CBS had it. It was on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the first time I actually learned about him was from that show. Again, because I was just like any food or restaurant related content I could get my hands on, I was just like devouring. And so, but yeah, that show was actually pretty impactful for me as far as just like kind of shedding a new light on like, okay, that's like actually a really cool industry where it's not just, I don't know, just gave me a different idea of what the industry could look like.
Sure. It's not just it's not a band of pirates like smoking cigarettes on the line and like
flipping burgers.
The Tony Bourdain version. Yeah. There's actually like a ultra engaged artistic kind of part of the whole scene too.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So that's the part of cooking that really grabbed you, was that artistic, soulful part of being a chef.
Absolutely. And like I said, I didn't realize it then, just like I didn't realize what it was about dancing. And I think it's been a more recent thing for me to actually be able to identify like, oh, I really love art. Like that's what I want to spend my life doing, is making art. Yeah, with cooking, it took me a little while to realize that. And I probably didn't really realize it until I was working for Mike at Bardot.
Gotcha. So let's get there. So you're the chef in St. Augustine. You're chatting with her about Sean. Yep. Obviously, you realize that you're obsessed with food, and maybe this is something you can do. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so that was the year I was graduating high school, I guess. So my plan was to, like I said, audition for companies, but I got this hip injury and got the same injury in my other hip, like as soon as I finished recovering. And I remember talking to a doctor and him being like, man, like it's just the shape of your body. He's like, as long as you're dancing, you're going to be in this office with this injury. Like, and that's just that. Which was actually a huge relief for me, because I didn't realize like how much more I wanted to cook than dance.
Right. Kind of forced you to
So at that point, I knew I wanted to cook. So that same chef at that Italian restaurant got me a job in Jacksonville, Florida. So moved from St. Augustine to Jacksonville, and like literally I had a a 98 Ford Escort station wagon and like could fit everything I owned into the wagon and just drove to this room I rented from 2 roommates I'd never met. And I started cooking.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. How long were you in Jacksonville?
I was in so I actually ended up working between Jacksonville and back in St. Augustine. It's only like an hour. So, but about 3 years kind of just in the scene working at least my favorite restaurants in that area. And yeah, so I was cooking in that area for about 3 years before I moved to Charlotte.
What kind of food were you cooking at that time? Like, were you doing, I mean, Bordeaux is a very specific style of service and food that, and we'll get to that because I want to talk a little bit about that. There's not a lot of it like that around Charlotte.
Right.
But in northern Florida at that point, what was the culinary scene like? Like, what kind of food were you engaged in? What were you learning? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to start French and get like a foundation because I knew I didn't want to go to culinary school. Like smart move. every chef I worked for or talked to was like, yeah, don't go to culinary school. Just work in good kitchens and just
bring a notebook.
Yeah,
learn everything you can.
Right. And so I had a really strong advantage from a starting point, like from my first job as a line cook, because if anybody in the restaurant was interested in the really fine dining scene, like I knew more about that than anybody did. Like I knew more about what restaurants were doing and what was current. And
from all your research and just being totally absorbed in it.
Yeah. So I think that kind of gave me a leg up. But I started like really strong French foundation at Restaurant Orsay in Jacksonville, which is a French restaurant. They got a James Beard nomination one year, and definitely the only restaurant in that area doing food to the level they were. But they were, that's French comfort food, and that was great as a business that was run really well, and I think really like solidified for me that like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. Like I'm going to keep pursuing this, and went from that French cooking to a Peruvian restaurant, I think it was 24 seats, and it was in St. Augustine, and spent about a year and a half there, and that was a very, very important point in my career because that's when I actually started to be able to be creative with food. So, and the chef there was amazing. Just kind of let me. He was Peruvian and was teaching me like the way that he learned to cook food in Peru, but he had a very like futuristic and forward-thinking, creative approach to cooking, and he kind of took me under his wing and let me develop my own style a little bit. And and that was my last. Yeah, and then I worked in barbecue a little bit. That's one of the first things I obsessed over in food was barbecue. So
because it's delicious,
it's so good.
It's like, smoked meat is awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's my favorite thing to eat, and it just made me happy. So I was able to do that, and that was
pork or
brisket.
Yeah. Brisket's your jam. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Salt and pepper on brisket, and really good smoke, and that's it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So from there. Charlotte? How'd you make it to Charlotte?
So I got married
in Florida. Met your wife there? Okay.
Yeah, I was 19.
Okay.
So
how old are you now?
24.
Okay, you're 24. Super young.
Yeah.
To have made it through the restaurant kitchens and basically taken a step back.
Right.
You have like a fast track approach to this whole career thing.
That's. Yeah.
So married at 19.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't plan it that way.
Right.
Like I said, I always go with my gut, and as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, it's just what I do. And I've had pretty good results with it so far, I think, but I'm like learning the life side of it. Like, okay, how can I be healthy too? So I got married, and we knew we wanted to move away from Florida. We were just kind of down there. There weren't any restaurants there that I wanted to work in. Like Miami was the closest. I didn't want to move there.
Right. You kind of dabbled in the food scene. You got some culinary chops, and you're like, all right, now I need to look for somebody who's doing more of the stuff that was in line with what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, so really, you could break it down. I pretty much did 2 years of like quality volume work at the restaurants, and then 1 year of creative work. And from there, I wanted to go stage at Favakin. That was my plan. But that's right around the time that we ended up getting married.
Why Favakin?
I just liked his food. I liked Magnus's food.
Yeah.
Actually, I was at Mad Academy in Copenhagen this year.
No way.
Yeah.
Rad,
so
dude.
I got to meet him and be a part of that, and that was super cool. That was crazy.
So talk a little bit about that, because that's an interesting, like that's a big move, right? Like that's a big, like, to cross the ocean.
Yeah.
To follow a chef. His food's super creative. Like it's wild
Right.
too. But for people that may not know, like why that, and what is it?
So why Favakin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where is it? Like I think,
Right, yeah.
like how do you go from like Jacksonville,
Right,
right?
yeah.
To be like, I want to be in.
So Magnus may have been on that same show, Mind of a Chef.
He was at some point.
And
Maybe
so-
the next season or something. I don't think they were on the same.
Yeah.
Maybe he was the last episode. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not.
The last episode of the first
I
season.
need to go back and watch it.
Everybody
That's
go
such
check it out.
Yeah.
It's an amazing
It's
series.
a really good show. Yeah.
I rewatch it all the time too.
Hey, Anthony Bourdain narrated it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Super. It's a very it's super inspired chef stories.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for me, like I love that series too, because like the podcast, like you get to glimpse into why other people do what they do.
Right.
Right. And their approach and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Magnus.
Yeah. So I think being able to watch that and just hear him talk about food and his philosophy, I was able to like connect the art of his food to his person a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved his whole philosophy on cooking absolutely matched what I wanted to do and what I wanted to learn and the restaurants that I wanted to be a part of.
What was that?
I mean,
Put words to that.
Right.
What
So his restaurant was in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? Jamtland, Norway. And he,
like smack dab in the middle of
Yeah.
Scandinavia.
yeah,
Like in the mountains.
yeah, like I think, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine to be like, yeah, I'm going to open up this restaurant here. And, it wasn't just a restaurant. It was I guess, kind of a resort, whatever.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I loved that he was like, this is just what I want to be a part of, this restaurant that's going on. So he moved out there and, they're growing all their own food and foraging their food. And he did a lot of work that was very in touch with his, I guess, the food of that area, like historically.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember like learning about him.
And his approach is like super modern.
Yeah.
Like he takes these ideas of Norwegian food,
Yeah.
right? Like Norwegian peasant food,
Yeah.
basically, like what's available, and puts a like hyper modern, technique driven approach to it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. Like his stuff's like super like immaculate.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything has a purpose
Yeah.
on it. Like, and it's
And
visually stunning.
Yeah, it is, and it's simple,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's these ingredients, but every
Right.
ingredient on the plate like has a story, and so
Yeah.
that's I think the initial thing that attracted me to him as a chef was when he talked about food. Even when he presents its food, it's like this is the story of this ingredient, and then he says the ingredient name, and so I just thought that was beautiful. I thought
Awesome.
like, okay, that's like you're in touch with everything on that plate, and it's
Yep.
there for a reason, and it's intentional.
Sweet. So you ended up not going to do that stage.
Yeah,
Well, why not? Did you,
like I said, so I was.
you're newly married too at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I kind of got married, and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be married, I'm probably can't go do that.
Yeah, I
for
can't just go
a
hang
year.
out in Norway for a
Right.
year.
So, which was, I'd rather be married, and now I'm more confident of that than ever.
Yeah,
But yeah, and so I think we were just looking for like, okay, where are we gonna start our life?
Yeah.
And
Norway was not it.
Norway wasn't it? Yeah. Well, it could have been.
Yeah,
It could've-
yeah.
My wife actually had a lot of connections in Charlotte. She lived here for a little while. She's from Florida, but she moved from Florida to Charlotte, back to Florida where we met. And then we both moved together back to Charlotte because she had people here. And I knew the scene here was, I would just have more opportunity and there were more places. So yeah, I started reaching out to restaurants here. Chris Coleman was about to open Goodyear House and I emailed him.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, I'm looking for something when I start. Not entirely sure where I want to wind up, but I'd love to be a part of what you're doing for a little while if you'll have me. And he got on a phone call with me, and he's like, you need to work for Mike. Like, he just knew. Like,
Yeah.
Chris was like, yeah, you need to go work for Mike. And
Right.
I think that was
You're not
like,
going to be happy doing what I
Right.
do.
and so he emailed me and Mike together, and like, it was super cool of him, but it was like, I don't know where that intuition from him came from, because like working for Mike totally changed my whole life and career, and it was amazing.
So Coleman got you in touch with Mike.
With Mike, and then I came and did a stage at Bardo.
When was this? I mean, was he newly open at this point?
Bardo was, I don't remember if they had just celebrated a year or were about to celebrate a year.
Okay,
but
so it was like early on.
Yeah.
Like he was just like kind of getting his feet under him here in town.
Yeah, they were
Gotcha.
kind of at a point where they, at that point, had a staff. So he was able to, trust people at the pass and focus on what he needed to. And, pretty much he hired me as a line cook. And I was like a tournant to start for like 2 weeks. And then his whole staff pretty much left. So, well, I shouldn't say his whole staff left. People were trickling out. Like, it was kind of like a couple of people had left, so they were short, and so me coming on helped that. And then, they just had people who had noticed it, and some of them were moving to Chicago, and some of them were in school. And
so let's talk, real quick. Let's talk about Bordeaux and what it is. First off, for anybody who doesn't know,
right,
who's listening, and why that satisfies what you were looking to do.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of trickle through like kind of that story.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So Bordeaux now it's a tasting menu restaurant. When I started, it was shared plates, but it was they were developed like tasting menu dishes. Like that's how there's just a larger portion, so you could share them because that's what Mike and Jason thought would serve the Charlotte community better, what people would be more into. Once I started there and got promoted to Sioux and then CDC. I was kind of a part of transitioning to be like, hey, let's just do tasting menu. Like, I think we can do it. We can. I think we can make it happen.
Yep. And
I think that's what Mike had always wanted to do, and so transitioned into tasting menu. But the food at Bordeaux is it's its own thing, really. I think Mike has done a really good job of having his unique style, and that's really hard to find with chefs. Like artists, they get their style eventually and they develop it. And I think chefs do that too, obviously, but Mike did a really good job of like, it was Mike's food, like I can taste a dish now and know if it was from Mike's brain or somebody else's. And I loved that working for him. It's like, okay, this guy's like knows what he wants in food. And so he, learned a ton from him, and he just helped me, become a chef really. He helped me know what it takes to run a restaurant and lead a staff and write menus, and he gave me a lot of autonomy to be creative and do the food that I wanted to do, which was, I think, complemented his style really well.
How active were you in developing the menus and the tasting, and also so that, right? Like how involved were you and Mike? Like, did you guys collaborate on that? Was it kind of like you each had like, hey, I want you to take care of the fish dish today. It's on you, and you kind of do it,
right?
Or was it collaborative, like across the board? Were you guys like kind of tighten it like that?
Yeah. So Mike and I, we're like yin and yang. We're like opposing forces that just complement each other really well. And so we didn't even think about it. Like we just made dishes. Both of us had ideas. Sometimes I was doing most of the creative work at Bordeaux, like most of the writing, and kind of had Mike to guide me, or if I had questions or whatever. But it was very organic. I would make a dish and put it in front of him, and he would taste it and be like, okay, I want to change this. And he would make a dish and let me taste it, and I would be like, okay, I think it would be cool if we added this to it. And we just danced, it just was natural for us. And that was so much fun.
So was that the connection for you, the dance?
Yeah.
It's like you guys like working together, that partnership to like create something together that ended up, being, I mean, I've eaten at Bordeaux a few times, and the food is beautiful and super tasty and wicked creative. And so like, I can see how that connection might
definitely
satisfy that.
Definitely like instantly felt like home being there. I think I was just really fortunate to be there when I was, and developed a really good relationship with Mike and Jason. And they asked me to help open Vana. This was, so I got, promoted to CDC. I started in September, and I was CDC by Christmas that year. So
was that 2018?
Yeah, because I think
it was, because I actually went and staged with you guys. Because I was prepping for Top Chef.
Right.
Yeah. I was prepping for the All-Star season.
Yeah.
So I came over. I had met Mike a bit, eating there a bunch of times. I was like, hey, I'm going to come hang in your kitchen a little bit and see what's going on.
Yeah, I was in the kitchen then. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. Just kind of scoping shit out, looking for like weird tricks,
right.
to step up my game.
Yeah. So
I think it was 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember we actually were at, Five Church at that time for New Year's 2019. Like me and Mike celebrating me getting promoted and the new year and all that. So, yeah, really 2019 is when I really started to primarily be able to be a creative with food. So we got to, springtime, and Vana was on the way, and they asked me to be involved with that process and basically be the CDC for both restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike and I wrote the opening menu for that. And we ran it that way a little while, where I was like, Mike was exec and I was CDC, and then I had sous chefs at each restaurant, and Mike and I were doing the creative work mostly, and then the sous chefs would add stuff. And then eventually I moved the structure around and changed it to something that was a lot more efficient, and I think just let people like run with what they were good at, because both restaurants right now have amazing CDCs. Matt at Vana and Kenny at Bardot are like out of control, just talented, really great cooks, really great chefs, really nice guys. And yeah, it's been, so I kind of promoted each of them, and I guess myself at the same time, and made each of them CDC. And then I took on exec and was more operations, like more focused on just helping Mike and Jason run the business however I could.
Yeah, find areas to make it better and stuff like that. I want to hear a little bit about the management side of things, like moving into that role, going from being a line cook, like a tournant early on at Bardot, and then like pretty quickly moving up into like a sous chef position. Like, what does that position look like? Like what are you responsible for that you weren't before, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then moving into, CDC and exec like leadership positions. It seemed like that for you happened really fast. I mean, you're 24, so it happened fast.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, but like, what was that experience like? Like, were you good at it? Did you have, were there what kind of challenges did you face for that?
Yeah, I think, man, I love people. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, I think that's hopefully like my defining characteristic, and the legacy I leave is that I love people. So, which is one of the reasons I loved working in restaurants, because you're so close to these other people around you, right? Like you're on the same team. And I think that was probably one of the biggest reasons I was able to move up as quickly as I did, because I was always aware of what the people needed next to me. That's one of the reasons it became so stressful to me too, is because these people around me needed things, and I could only give so much. And so, yeah, I think when you care about other people, naturally you're just like in touch with what needs to be done and able to learn and understand and comprehend just where you need to be when. And so I think that was a lot of just what helped me move up quickly. But it was very hard. It was really difficult. It was all of a sudden I'm leading two separate kitchens. I'm leading two kitchens that were new, two new staffs at two new restaurants that, I really believed in the work we were doing. I think that was a big part of the stress, was like believing in the work, right? Yeah. Believing in the work and not letting anything compromise and just caring.
What was the most challenging part of that for you? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking back to when we opened Five Church here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think in my own head, like, what was difficult for, like, I was a fucking train wreck when we did that. Like I had a chip on my shoulder, and I had a lot to prove from a culinary standpoint.
Right.
And I had the cooking chops to do it. Like there was no doubt. I was like, I'm going to do my thing and force this shit on people, and they're going to love it.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
But the stress that went along with that, because I knew very little about the financial aspect of things. I knew basic kitchen math, right? Like cost of goods sold. Yeah, how do you calculate cost of goods sold? That's about all I knew. Yeah. I had no idea really how to control it. Right. I had no idea how it affected, the P&L and all this like business side of stuff. I also, I had been a CDC and a sous chef for some really remarkable chefs in different experiences.
Right.
Most of them were old school chefs. They came from kind of the old guard kind of approach to leading a kitchen. There was a lot of screaming, yelling, abuse kind of stuff. That's what I learned. That's the environment that I learned in. And so I didn't have the tools. I was an amazing leader, right? Like I had a vision and I had a story to tell, and I could verbalize that to my team, and I could get them to see what we were trying to achieve. Yeah. But my management skills were awful. Like I did not know how to talk to people and get them to do what I wanted them to do. To, just manage time and stuff like that. Like I was awful about that. I could write a very detailed prep list, right? Yeah. Like my skills as a cook and as a chef were amazing. I was hyper organized, so clean and orderly and all that. But just the management part of things, I was awful at. And I really struggled with that for a long time. But the thing I think, and that was very difficult for me to make that transition into like management. But the most stressful and difficult thing for me, I think, was sustaining the vision long enough to get through that first couple years where to get people to buy into it, like to get the public to buy in, right? Because you're selling an experience and a food experience and all this stuff that maybe the community is not ready for or used to.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult thing for you in that experience? Because I mean, you had two fairly new restaurants.
Yeah,
they opened pretty quickly.
Yeah, the business side of things were very natural to me. Like that's just the way my mind works. I'm very strategic and like so I think I was able to handle that side of it well. Like that was just natural. I didn't think about it. Leadership also is pretty natural for me, and I felt like I said, I think just because people knew I cared about them and wanted what was good for them. Like I had a really strong team of people who just wanted to do well. Mm-hmm. So I think the hardest thing for me was maybe just the expectation, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe just that the expectation is there that like, hey, you're the man, like you're the guy. Anything goes wrong,
you have the answers,
right? You have the answers.
You know what's up,
right?
Like,
and I don't have the answers.
Here's a little hint for you. Okay, I'm 47.
All right, yeah.
I don't know dick about shit. Okay, like what you learn as you get older is that you know nothing. You think you know when you're like in that position, and then you're like, wait, I don't know.
Yeah, and like I can usually figure it out. I can make it happen. But really, I think like the industry is the industry, and it's always been that. My life circumstances changed. Like I said, I was married. I had a baby, and like I think the single thing that put the most stress on me was just me wanting to do that, like wanting to be with my wife and my newborn, and do my art. And there was other things that kind of were a part of my life or whatever that I wanted to focus more on. And I just felt like if I want to be a chef and do it right, that has to be my whole entire focus. I need to be singularly focused on that, or be proficient enough in everything and in leadership that I can learn how to have that balance. But I didn't yet, and I wasn't in a point in my career life to really be able to do that. To set up a role where I could operate and be at home and spend time with my family. And so I think that was like creating a lot of just turmoil in me, like just having the desire to be with my family and pursue things in life outside of the kitchen. Yep. And I think that's really hard. I think chefs, you said, I remember you said one time chefs are like rock stars, they're like, and it's so true. Like we're all on this team together every single night, like through the thick and thin, and it's a stressful environment. You're going through a lot of stress together. A lot of times you're partying together and all of that, which I've mostly been able to avoid. But yeah, it's very consuming. It's a very consuming lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's on the fringe too. Like you're not it's not a huge community of people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that's what I meant about that too. Is like it's a very close knit niche fringe kind of community of people that are doing all this stuff.
Right.
They're having this experience that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
absolutely can't relate to it.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things that I love the most about the industry, right? Is that like I know it feels like home. Like it feels like my people. Like even now I'm working part-time at a brewery pouring beers in the evenings, and it's like I just love being around these people. It's like they get it. You know?
So that's that hospitality gene.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were talking about that, and I just want to mention that because the hospitality gene, right? Like the taking care of people thing. Like that's something that's innate in your being that makes you really good at being a chef and being a leader. But that thing, and I think a lot of people who have that hospitality gene that want to care for people and take care of them, if it's not balanced with the ability to take care of yourself and to recognize that, it can consume you to the point where there's nothing left. Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I've hit that mark because I'm very much like that too. I'm very like I want to take care of people. It drives my fiance crazy. She's like, dude, like how about me? Yeah. Right. Like I'm here. You're like giving everything to everybody all the time, and then you're just like fucking tapped. Yeah. And she's right. Like in that, and she's been really great for me to like step back and say, okay, I have to create a boundary here where you get, so much of the tank is for all of them.
Yeah.
And then this much of the tank is for me. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's important that like people in hospitality that are really good at it and thrive in it have that nurturing, like want to take care of people thing.
Right.
And if it's not checked, like you can tap yourself out.
Yeah. I think I had the exact same conversation, it sounds like, with my wife. And, and like I said, up to the point of me leaving, I think people externally, like I was doing fine. The restaurants were running well. The staff was happy. The food was good. Like by all accounts, I was doing a really good job. And I don't think people maybe understood why I was as stressed as I was. And again, I think it wasn't all the restaurant work. Most of it was me.
Right.
And like I said, I was having the same conversation with my wife where she's like, you come home and you're tapped. Like, yeah, you just can't like have the capacity for anything else.
Right.
And it didn't feel like that. It just felt like I'm just working in restaurants.
Right.
But it's like,
it's how you do it.
Right.
It's like certain chefs, like it's all or nothing. Like there are many chefs out there that are very good about, just doing what they need to do and executing the thing and putting out great food at a high quality, but they don't have that, intense personal attachment to it.
Right.
It's like obsession.
Right.
Right. I think that's part of the artistic thing.
Yeah. And the difference, right?
Yeah.
When you eat the food, the difference.
Right.
So yeah, I think I wanted to take time away to figure that out, to be like, okay, how can I, if I can have this crazy attachment, like, my wife and kid are not optional,
Right. Yeah.
So if something has to go, it's the career.
Right.
And that's, I mean, I will, yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if I'm going to be a chef, I want to learn how I can be a healthy human too. Like I don't think that those things should be exclusive.
Right. Totally, 100%. I mean, I think that's a lot about what our mission is now, doing the tip to kitchen thing and all this is like, how do we restructure our group, the operations that we're doing, so that it's not like the restaurants that I worked in, right? Where the expectation was like, you work until the work's done, no matter what it takes. It's all about excellence and being the best and all that shit, which is great. And like, I still aspire for excellence and like all that, but like, I'm less concerned about perfection than I used to be. I'm like, wait, that's a faulty thought. Like chasing that is like, you burn out every time. Right. It's like, how about just try to be excellent. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Things are fucked up. Nobody's, the same. And having to like, come to terms with that with our own business where we can make it a healthy environment for people to want to be in. Right.
It's sustainable for a career.
And for the industry too. Like, how many people can handle that kind of abuse, pressure, stress,
and be good at running businesses.
Right.
And it's been crazy now, like actually looking for like office jobs, office jobs that I can do from my studio, work remotely.
Could you do that? Could you do an office job?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't want to.
Like,
but I think because it's tied to my studio and my art, it's going to let me sit in both sides of my brain really well. Like I think it'll be a really good relationship between like working with my hands and physically producing things in the world. And my job will be, I'm going to be in recruiting. So I'll be hospitality recruiting. If any chefs need a job, hit me up.
Cool.
But yeah.
How do they hit you up?
Probably Instagram, LinkedIn.
We'll put all the attachments to the show notes so people can reach out to you. But
I was just I love that because I still get to be with my people, right? And I get to help people find opportunities, and I think that's the only reason I can do an office job. Actually, I got licensed. I did all the training to be a mortgage broker earlier this year, and that was an office job. And I did fine. I could stay in my office, but I hated the work. And what was missing was like hospitality. I didn't feel like I was taking care of people. So this job isn't, like I said, this career move isn't what I expected, but I'm actually really excited for it. I'm excited to get to spend all day on the phone talking to chefs and managers and whatever, and just staying in touch with the industry, and also be doing my art, and then, having lunch with my wife and daughter every day.
Awesome. I want to lead into your art because I want to talk about that a little bit because I think your art's super cool. But first, I want to know about the food that you were making, that you were passionate about. What was your favorite? Like, do you have a favorite dish? Do you have a favorite composition that you put together that you were like, holy shit, I nailed it? Like, this is like my jam
of my own dish.
Yes, your own. You're like your thing. Is there one that that you love, that you're like super proud of, and like this could be a signature that I could stand behind?
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because I have a bunch of signature dishes that I'm not particularly proud of.
Okay.
That have become signatures over time.
Okay, interesting.
Right, through the businesses and through the restaurants, but they're dishes that they didn't come from like my heart.
Right.
You know, but people love them and they become like, you become synonymous with you, and I'm like, great.
So this is like something I'm going to listen to 10 years from now.
I feel like
what the hell, William? Like, that's gross. So I can think of, like, I'm torn between 3 off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think mostly thanks to Mike, I was able to develop my personal style, flavor wise, pretty quickly.
Yep.
And it was just, I think I'd read a lot. I'd read a lot, and I understood flavors and composition and all that. Trying to decide which of the 3 I'm going to go with.
You could say all 3.
Okay, I'll just list the components, 'cause maybe it'll make more sense. So I did a soba noodle carbonara at Bardo, and it was basically soba noodles coated in duck fat hollandaise with duck breast, bacon, whipped bliss maple syrup, and freeze-dried coffee.
Nice.
So it's like a little pasta course.
Yeah.
I did a trail mix with like foie gras morsels at Bardo. So we just like did cool dried fruits and cashews and foie gras morsels, and you ate it like it was nitro
Foie gras
frozen.
morsels. How'd you do that?
Yeah, so basically you make like a pate and tempered it and piped it into liquid nitrogen
And just froze it up.
broke the pieces up.
Did you you had to freeze it a la minute, no? Because
We could hold it in the freezer for service.
Okay.
So
but you had to serve it cold or else it would turn back to...
Yeah, so we kept the morsels in the freezer and then just folded it into our trail mix mixture, and then you ate it with a spoon.
And it just like kind of liquefies in your mouth, like
had some
becomes
fluid
soft.
gels with it. And
Nice.
Then the other one was a cheese course, also on the tasting menu at Bardo, and it was fermented yeast and honey ice cream with Humboldt Fog cheese, frozen and grated over the top. Walnuts and sourwood honey.
Yeah.
That was it. So it was like a quenelle of yeast ice cream with cheese.
So what about those 3 dishes make them dishes that you're so proud of? Like what about them stick out as dishes that you're happy with?
They were really good. Like eating them.
They worked.
They were delicious. Yeah. And I think it suited my palate really well. Like when I ate it, it made me happy. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, that was, and I knew like if it made me happy, there were other people who would like it too. Mm-hmm.
How much of your approach to food was about making food that made you happy, right? That you're like, I mean, obviously that just listening to those courses, right? They're super creative, right? You take ingredients out of their normal environment that people recognize them in,
right,
and you present them in like a totally different way or environment and in combination.
Yeah.
That's super creative. How much of the dish that you're proud of or your approach is about dishes that make you happy or make other people happy? Like other people are going to get. Is that even a consideration? Or are you like, hey, I've got this really creative idea, and I hope I can get people there. Like I hope I can lead them to it.
Yeah, I think I'm most interested in finding the people who my food naturally makes happy and just make them happier. Mm-hmm. Like I'm, my food's not always going to serve a broad audience. That's not, if I'm honest with myself and what I love to cook and what satisfies me in the kitchen. Yeah, it's. I think maybe a smaller group of people who are going to get it, but I think those people are really going to get it.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of my motivation for cooking.
Cool. All right, sweet. Yeah, so I wanted to hear about your food artistry before we led into what you're doing now. So all this, culmination of all this work kind of compressed leads you to make the decision to kind of step out of the kitchen for a bit. Yeah. Reassess, a little sabbatical maybe. Yeah. And so what are you doing now?
Yeah, so have plans to open a restaurant. Like I have the concept for it.
Okay.
I have the name. I can't really talk about it, but I have like kind of financials falling into place.
Can you say where? Is it local?
I think it'll be in Charlotte. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not entirely sure the time frame. We actually just found out that my wife is pregnant. It's a boy.
Whoa! Congratulations,
When's
dude.
this podcast come out? We just found out
yesterday, it'll be in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? Or we'll figure it out. We can do it next week. Whatever.
What? No, yeah, I was just curious.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. All right. We haven't announced it yet. But
when are you going to announce it? Because do we need to hold off?
No, it'll be fine. We're pretty chill.
You say that.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, William.
Maybe I'll ask her and send you a text later. But
yeah. Because we can push it if you don't want people to hear it
right.
first.
So, yeah, along with the recruiting thing.
Congratulations, man. That's super exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. It's like just being home, like being in my home.
Yeah.
I think especially because I was like a boarding student when I was 16. Like I haven't had home since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just like settling into a family and a home, and then talking or doing art. Like I started painting. I don't remember exactly when I kind of dabbled with it for a long time, and then started to take it more seriously during COVID lockdown.
Okay. So you weren't a serious painter or artist in that facet.
Yeah. Until
COVID.
Yeah.
Like you were interested in it and played around with it and stuff like that, but
right.
never really spent a whole lot of time or energy on it.
Never had like come to the conclusion and decided like, okay, I want this to be a part of my life, mm-hmm. like probably for the rest of my career. And I want this to be something that I'm disciplined in pursuing and just making.
So your artwork is super sick. Like it's really cool.
Thanks. Appreciate
I like it a lot. Like I follow all your stuff on social media. We'll put the links and stuff so people can check it out. But it really it appeals to me a lot. And so say a little bit about your approach to it, because it's interesting and it's unique. Like you don't see a lot of processes like what you're using to put your stuff together. So talk a little bit about that and why you use those prompts. How you figured out to do them.
Yeah, so I think my philosophy and my motivation, just from a creative, not even a creative standpoint, from a practical, like what am I going to do to get the result I want? I was in the kitchen. I was very good about learning boundaries and learning like this is okay and this is okay and this is what well-seasoned food tastes like. But how I got there, I didn't care how anybody else did it. Like I just wanted to understand my ingredients and get there. Like I would learn recipes and understand them, but I was more just I just wanted to understand the ingredients mm-hmm. and understand how I could treat them best. Mm-hmm. And with art, I think it's been the same thing. So I became very like disenchanted using paints and whatever, because I'm like, okay, it's a product. I don't feel connected to it. It doesn't feel natural or organic. It doesn't mean anything to me. Like and that's not to say that if you like use paints, obviously most artists do. Right. I'm just saying for me, I wanted to work with nature in some aspect. I knew that, and I wanted to work with things around me. Mm-hmm. And that probably comes from being a chef, and like you're always looking at what's growing around you, and that's what you're going to base your menus off of. Mm-hmm. So I started using fire with my art. Because I thought, oh, that's a good way to like interact with nature a little bit in a way that I can't totally control. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing that. Pretty much all my work's on canvas, just so you have kind of a reference for what I do. Pretty much everything I do is on canvas. I do some sculptures here and there, but what I apply to the canvas can be like, I guess I would be considered a mixed media artist, but
I would say
yeah for sure.
And we'll post some clips from your Instagram like to the thing. I just so people see what it's about, but it's pretty wild to watch the process.
Yeah, so a lot of my studio is actually kitchen tools, like my old retired or sabbatical kitchen tools.
Your fish spatula,
oyster knives, KitchenAid mixers. So that definitely, like I said, I want to use ingredients that I'm attached to. So right now, most of my work, I still use fire here and there. I think that'll be a part of my work for a while probably, but I'm using a lot of clay right now. So that's the only thing. I'm using clay and charcoal. And to be even more specific, right now I'm basing almost all the work I'm producing off of cave people. Mm-hmm. Like it's inspired by cave people.
In what way?
I don't know how. I guess I got to thinking about cavemen somehow. I think because I was thinking about
using fire
art.
And like
that a lot of people had mentioned that like my art kind of has a very elemental like
raw
raw prehistoric, even like people said like very specific words that got me thinking. And I guess just subconsciously I went down a lot of rabbit holes and then started to actually formulate my thoughts and journal about them. And I eventually landed at cavemen. Like that was what felt natural to me, because it was the beginning of like humankind, right? And they were making art. And why is this person who like is literally being hunted by wild animals and like fighting to survive. Why are they making art? Like,
right.
And so I think
That's
like,
interesting. It's an interesting thought
right.
process.
So, and what were they trying to achieve by it?
Yeah,
right.
what were they trying to communicate
Right.
to this art?
Right. And, that was just inspiring for me to think about. I'm like, well, I want my art, like right now it's a very literal sense, like looks like cave paintings.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a more abstract way, but like I want to have that perspective of art, like be kind of free from what the art industry is or what society wants art to be, or even society itself, and just be like, okay, I'm a human and I want to make art. Why? Why? And just start making the art.
Where does that desire and urge come from to do that? It's interesting. I don't know if you realize this, but you referred to your medium as ingredients, just so you know.
Did I really?
Yeah, you did.
Wow.
So just
Weird.
so you know. Yeah. And then using the fire and stuff totally is part of it that I think relates to me. That's is how these things kind of like all interplay, right, to tell a story or to evoke an emotion or whatever. That's super cool.
That's funny.
Yeah, you were like, my ingredients. I was like, interesting. It's like, I don't think he knows he's doing that.
No, I didn't catch that. That was funny.
Cool. Awesome. So you've got this caveman thing going on right now.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that stuff.
Yeah, so like I said, right now I'm using clay and charcoal and limiting myself just to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I use varnishes, I seal it, all that. So there's like actual art supplies or like actual, definitely technique and order to it. But a lot of it's just exploring like why I want to make art.
Yeah.
And also like just meditating on the lives that these people lived before they had, we were talking about pressure earlier, and I was just thinking about like, man, what is
their pressure like?
Yeah, what was their pressure like? And what if I had a mindset where I'm like, okay, I just need to survive today.
Yeah.
Like that's just
you're not worried about saber-toothed tigers.
Right. Yeah, and when I get a chance, like go to the back of my cave and paint.
Right.
And that's I think really what I'm looking for in life is like, that's it.
Cool. I wonder if you thought about, so you didn't go to culinary school.
Mm-mm.
You didn't go to art school.
Uh-uh.
I'm wondering if that lack of instruction in the direction that you've gone has allowed you to approach food and art in a way that's abstract from other people, right? Mm-hmm. So you're able to approach it from maybe a more creative way because you don't have that foundation that's been pounded into you.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, okay, braises happen like this.
Yeah.
It's a very specific method to braise.
Right.
But maybe for you can say, well, okay, this is the finished product. I don't necessarily have to get there through these steps. I can take this route.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly how I got to think about cavemen, is 'cause I'm like, they didn't have anything to look to influence the work they did, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing that they had was whatever was in there. And I've always been looking for that in food and with art, is like understanding, like I said, understanding my surroundings, being in touch with, being present to what I'm around with and what ingredients I have, or, what materials I have in front of me to make art. And I lost that train of thought.
No, I mean, we're rambling, so it's totally cool. But so what you were just talking about led me to your new project. We got sidetracked. We talked about your new family development, which is super exciting. But I'm excited to hear that you have a project on the horizon, because you've had a fast track approach to everything, and you've made some pretty hardcore decisions along the way, like to walk away from your career,
right?
When it's kind of just kicking off is a big, that takes some fucking nuts, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
It's scary.
Yeah. Like, that's like, takes some balls to do that. So kudos for that, for like, having the self-awareness and the bravery to say, hey, I got to do this, right, for my family and for me. But now knowing that you have something cooking in the back of your mind that's going to be coming to town is exciting. Because it sounds to me like there's a lot of growth happening for you right now. Like a lot of kind of discovery. The art is obviously therapeutic and doing a lot of stuff for your creativity and your approach. So that's super exciting. Is there anything that you can say about the concept, what you want to do, without giving away what the restaurant's going to be, or anything that you're kind of bound to?
Right.
I don't want to get you in trouble, but I'm interested to kind of, I'm interested, and I think people would like to know kind of what maybe is coming down the road.
Yeah, maybe I can say what I'm focused on in my life right now. And you can understand that that's with me keeping, I almost said the name of the restaurant, in mind.
The place.
The place in mind in the future. Because I feel like I'm preparing for that, right? I feel like, okay, I'm learning like how to like freaking change diapers right now. I'm learning how to be a dad and take care of a family. And again, that's the non-negotiable in my life, like moving into restaurant work again eventually. So that's my biggest priority right now is like focusing on my health, how I can be healthy. But then the art is definitely, I'm really exploring ideas for the food I will cook in my art now in a very abstract manner. And yeah, I don't know. I think it would probably be very hard for a lot of people to understand like what's going on in my head to correlate the two, like what's happening in my life creatively now and how that's going to correlate to the restaurant. But yeah, I would say that's absolutely something that I'm intentionally developing my philosophy on. And I have a lot of very specific ideas, and I'm giving them time to age in my head and see how they do. And I might kick them out and throw something else in. But yeah, right now a very, very specific plan and design and all of that in mind. But like I said, I'm going to give it time and develop my own creative ability and identity, and then probably start pursuing it, hopefully with a healthier mindset and a very intentional. Like I just want to, when it's time to do that, like I just want to know, like this is what I want to do. Yeah. This is how I want my food to taste. And again, I don't. How I get there is not as important to me. I think because, yeah, it just has to be natural. Right. So I don't want to force it.
Do you have like a time frame in mind that you'd like to see this restaurant come to fruition, or are you just kind of like,
Yeah. So like we've spoken about potentially like the next couple years, like a couple years from now. Okay. But it's also, we have a very kind of open conversation about like just where I'm at, and they're great. They're really supportive of like, yeah, okay, you need to be right and ready to do it. And, so yeah, I think tentatively kind of a few years away.
Cool.
So
right on.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and
be like,
all right,
oh, it's time to go.
Time to go. Yeah.
Let's get suit up, guys.
I think likely knowing myself, that's what's going to happen. Is I'll probably literally wake up one morning and be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So everything just kind of needs to ferment.
Yeah.
To use a culinary term, it needs to ferment and get there when it's ready. It's ready, and then you go. Yeah. Good for you. Cool, man. Well, we're just over an hour. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we cut it?
No, I covered cave people.
Yeah. We got some really good hashtags out of this, and we're gonna have a heyday with it.
Yeah. No, I think that's good.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming down here and sharing with me, man. It's a very interesting story. I'm excited about what you got going on. Your art's awesome. I'm gonna pick up a piece. I know I hit you up and told you I was gonna get a piece. I just need to figure out which one I want.
Yeah.
And I'll get that. And yeah, man, keep doing your thing and keep us in the loop. Let me know what's going on.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, William.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.